and I am by no means superwoman, and there are weeks that are better than other weeks. Okay. But I promise you, these habits truly help. I'm not coming up with excuses to you. I love all these fitness influencers I follow online who are like, oh my gosh, just like eat chicken every day and be skinny. And I'm like, that's so nice for you. I have like a bajillion other things on my plate, so that's not going to work. So find the way that this fits into your schedule. You know, when my kids were really young, like infants, there are nights they would sleep not very well. I am not waking up at 5 a.m. to go to the gym after my kid was up all night. It's not happening. So sometimes we shift a day or we skip that day entirely, and that's okay. Like I said, this is inspiration and this is guide. So the goal is that this would help you guys really take ownership and find some direction when it comes to being as successful as you can be within the parameters of what works in your life, right? And it's really important to carve out those hobbies so that your mind can decompress. Welcome back to this episode of Secrets of the Career Game. So many people are trying to navigate a corporate world that is laden with secrets, cleverly hidden, and unspoken rules to a game that most employees don't even know that they're playing. On this podcast, we try to give you a peek behind the curtains and some tips and tricks to ultimately make you successful in your career and help you progress a little bit faster. Hello, lovelies. Today it is a cold, gross day in Colorado. So we're going to share a very special topic. It's near and dear to my heart, and that is one of the most consistently requested things I get in my program from clients, but also from comments on social media, on LinkedIn, which is all about really how you create good habits to deliver great work. And with that comes time management. And we're going to talk about some of the things that I do just to make sure that everything that needs to get done gets done. We'll talk about some of the products that I use that support this. This entire episode is not sponsored by any of those products. This is just what I have found works for me. And we'll talk a little bit about how to decompress and relieve your mental load when you're not working. So it's going to be a fun topic, and we'll go ahead and jump right in. So the first thing that I found really helpful when it comes to establishing your boundaries and making sure you're getting the work done that you want to get done is to start with an ideal schedule. So whether you work in an office, you work a traditional 9 to 5, you work nights, you have a different schedule, you work from home, regardless of what you do, what you're going to do is you're going to take a blank weekly calendar and we're going to create an ideal schedule. So what that will look like is here's your week. So you have each day of the week across the top, and you have all of the times down the left-hand side. So this that I use is a Remarkable tablet. And within the Remarkable tablet, I just have a weekly calendar that I bought off of Etsy. I will put the link in the show notes. But the planner, I think, is like $7. And then it goes straight on my Remarkable tablet and it all clicks and it's super great. So it's one of the products that I use the most to keep myself organized. But when it comes time to create your ideal schedule, what you're essentially going to do is mark out how your life would flow if you were in control of it, right? And you're going to use time blocking to do this. So for example, say that you want to go to the gym Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, and you want to do that from 8 a.m. until 9 a.m. Okay. You're just going to draw a quick little rectangle and write gym Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 to 9. Then say, if you're somebody like me who runs their own business and has a corporate job, I'm not a huge fan of time blocking within a day because meetings happen and people schedule over your breaks and all kinds of stuff. But what I do is I will do day blocking. So Monday, let's say from 10 until noon is going to be content creation for my business, for example. And from 1 until 2 is when I record that week's podcast episode. We're making stuff up, okay? And then let's say Tuesday from 10 until 2 is when I take meetings for my corporate job. And then from 3 until 5 on Tuesdays is when I get like caught up on work. This is analysis, spreadsheets, decks, things like that, okay? So now my week is starting to fill up. See what I'm saying? So what you're going to do is you're going to create these blocks and you're going to put your hobbies in there, right? Your gym, your knitting, your reading of your books, your going to Pilates class, your hanging out with friends, right? Everything is going to go in to create an ideal week, right? And if there are certain things you do every week, like for me, I have content creation, I have podcast recording, I have client sales calls, right? Things like that, I would block in. And then once your week is full, whatever time is left, theoretically, is your job, right? So if I do this whole week and all of my time gets blocked up and I have gym and I have my kids' events, right? My kids have events Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. Isn't that fun? Once all of that is on the schedule and I can see, hey, here's the things I have to do. Here's the things I want to do. Here's how much time is left in between. Then I can assess if that is a right amount for my job. Okay. Now, I know what you guys are thinking right now. You're thinking, well, I'm in an office 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, and I can't do anything during that time. That's fine. So let's say 9 to 5, we're in an office and there is no ability to do anything. You can't record content. You can't go to the gym. You can't do anything. Okay. You're going to create your same schedule. And I like to block time for lunch. This is because otherwise you end up with meetings and you don't eat. I know this because I have worked in an office a majority of my life. Okay. So then your schedule is going to look something like this. So I have gym 3 days a week. I have work in the morning, work in the evening. So this is my schedule that I'm unable to break away from. If you work nights, it would look similarly, right? You're going to block your work time. And then you're going to layer in your family commitments. Then you're going to layer in going to the gym. Then you're going to layer in hanging out with friends, right? You're going to create your ideal schedule. What does it look like? What are the commitments that you have for yourself? I find that doing this gives me a much better handle of how much time I actually have and how much I can truly fit in. Because I'm one of those people who tends to overextend themselves, right? I tend to book so much Monday through Friday that I am running constantly from 7 a.m. until midnight or 5 a.m. until midnight, right? So I work out at the gym, for example, from 6 a.m. until 7 a.m. My gym is kind of far from me, so I have to leave at 5:30. I get home at 7:30. Then I get my kids ready and off to school, right? So my mornings are pretty heavy. Then I go for a walk every day, which is one of those things that would be blocked out in your time because I work from home, so I don't have to commute. So that's my walking time. Then I'm on calls till 5 or until 4:30. 4:30, my kids get home from school. Then it's feed them. Then it's activities, right? So it helps me to have a view of what would my week actually look like in an ideal situation. And then you can make better habits because you're committing yourself to that plan. Okay. So one of the things you guys always ask me is how do I track the things I need to get done and make these habits? So starting with the ideal schedule is a great way. So for me, I have to have the gym. Okay. I have anxiety and ADHD. I do not sit still well. I have to work out in the morning or I become a crazy person. It's just true. Okay. Wish it wasn't the case. So gym for me is a non-negotiable. Now there are mornings I wake up that I don't feel like going. Okay. And sometimes I slot my workouts for later in the day. So today is a great example where my kids have activities tonight, but they're being taken by other people. I did not feel like waking up this morning. My husband was traveling, so I couldn't go to the gym anyways. So I'm going tonight, right? But I have an ideal schedule where I go to the gym Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, Saturdays. Those 4 days of the week are my 4 workout days. And so like those are slotted on my calendar. So this helps me build that habit because I know what my week should look like, right? Same thing if you are doing some type of like service to yourself, right? Getting your hair done, your nails done, getting a facial, going tanning. I don't care. If you're doing any of those things, right? It goes on that ideal schedule. So that's one of the ways that I build some habits is I block the time for them in my ideal week schedule. I also find that it's helpful because I know when I need to do things. So I'm pretty type A. I like to get things done at a certain time. So I find that that's like really helpful for me. But the second way that I make habits is I have repeatable things that I do every day. So my repeatable things list looks like this. It's a lot of things, okay? So every day I journal, I pray, I read my Bible, I work out, I walk, I post on both of my social media accounts, I go outside for 30 minutes, I comment on LinkedIn, I water my plants, I read 10 pages in a nonfiction book, I listen to a podcast episode, right? So these are all things that I do every day. So again, This is a tool that I use to do this. You do not need to use this tool. You could use a notebook. You could have a notepad made on Etsy. I know that there are habit trackers you can have customized on Etsy and then like have it shipped to your house. But what I do is every single day, this list gets copied and pasted. Okay. So if I go to the next day, here's my list again. Right? And I just go down and I check it. And I add things to the bottom of that to-do list that I need to get done for work, right? So this is a way that I make sure I manage my deliverables for my corporate job or for my personal life, right? Is in here. For example, I have to review somebody's resume. So that goes on to the bottom of my to-do list so that when I get to this day, which is Thursday, so a few days from now, I will remember that I have to review that resume, right? So I add things to my repeating to-do list in my digital notebook on the day I need to do them. This is true of work tasks. So for example, today I have to do an analysis for my boss. He assigned it to me Friday, but I knew I wouldn't have time to do it until today. So it went on today's to-do list. And now I'm going to do it, right? So I find that when it's trying to track all of the different things you have going on, having some type of planner where you can see future days is really helpful. And what I do is just on those future days in my to-do list for that day, I add that thing that I need to do. Now, what a lot of people do is they use like a month overview, but I find like a month overview for me is more like days that my kids don't have school or parties that we have or travel that we have coming up so that I don't forget about them. As opposed to where I put like my to-do list tasks, because my to-do list tasks I want to do on the day. So I try to put them in that day. Does that make sense? I think that makes sense. So, one of the ways I track my work is I make sure that I add the tasks I need to do to the date that I need to do them. Now, in my planner, the way that it works is if I go into this week and I need to do something on Tuesday, if I click Tuesday, there's a to-do list on Tuesday. So that's how I do it. Again, this is a digital tool. It is not required. You could do it in a physical planner. You could do it in a physical notebook. You could do it on a list on your desk for all I care. But for me, I find it's really helpful that on the day I plan to do something that I'm committed to do it, I add that task to my to-do list. That way I make sure that I don't forget it. So that's one way that I track things. It's also the way that I build these habits. So when I first started journaling every day, I put journaling on my to-do list because otherwise I'm probably going to forget. And or I'm going to get through the whole day and then I have like 50 habits that I wanted to build and it's 10 o'clock at night and I'm trying to squeeze them all in before I go to bed. And that doesn't work for me. So I have this list. The other place that I have this list is on my phone. So my Remarkable does sync to my phone and I track a lot of things there, but I also use the A-Note app. I don't know if you guys can see A-Note. And on the A-Note, you can see like I have a bunch of to-do lists and all of these are recurring. So if for some reason I don't have access to my tablet or if I'm traveling, my to-do list items are also on my phone. Also, just because I like the adrenaline rush of getting to check them off twice. So I get to check them off on my tablet, be like, yes, I did this thing. But then I also get to go on my phone and be like, I did that thing. Okay. So for personally, I have it on my phone and I have it in my tablet. Those are the two places that I track it. Now I used to use a day designer planner in order to track them. It's just a physical one. Give me it right here. Actually, hold on. I do. I have one in my desk. It's old, so it's probably not been used in a while, but like, here's a day designer. Okay. And then it has like every month, and then in every month it has every day, which like same thing, I would make a to-do list on every day. Okay. So I used to use this before I moved to the Remarkable. The day designer is kind of expensive. There are other less expensive ones that you can buy. But I really like the quality of those. So those are some of the tools that I use to really like track that and make sure that I'm sticking to my habits and make sure that I'm building good practices. The other thing I would encourage you to do if you're trying to build good habits is wake up early. I know everybody talks about this. You don't have to get up at 5 a.m. I get up at 5 a.m., but I'm a morning person. It's totally different for me to get up at 5 a.m. Okay. I enjoy it like a psycho. But if you are a night person, for example, I'm not saying you need to wake up at 5 a.m. That's not going to work for you. But wake up early enough that you can have a cup of coffee before you start to work. You can journal before you start to work. You can go for a walk. Do something for you before you start working. Then once you start working, the rest of your day. Then the evenings is maybe when you go work out or when you do more strenuous things. But I do like to book enough time in my morning to kind of decompress and get ready for the day so that I'm not waking up and running to my laptop. I think in 2020, when we first started working from home, I would literally like roll out of bed into work because I was like, this is great. That does not work for me mentally. It like is very stressful for me to wake up and go straight into work things. So book enough time for you to kind of get up, do one or two of your habits, feel like you're starting the day off on the right foot. I find that that's really helpful. So those are some things about tracking to make sure you meet your deliverables as well as setting habits. The other thing I would encourage you for tracking is more on the career side, which is all of these little tasks that you do. You either don't think they're that important, they're BAU, they're part of your job, they're repeatable, whatever it is, or we think, oh, I'll definitely remember that I did this thing. You won't, and your boss won't for sure. So there is an accomplishments tracker on my website. We will also link that in the show notes. But when you are doing any type of project for work, any type of task, you should be tracking that in a work tracker. So I have an accomplishments tracker. It's in Excel. Like I said, we'll link it in the show notes. But in there, you can track what the project was, what were the tasks, who did you work with, what was the impact to the company. And you want to be tracking all year long so that when you go into performance reviews, which are happening around now, you have this huge, great list of all the things you've done, all the partners you've worked with. You can reach out to them for 360 feedback. You can track your projects. And you have a lot of material you can write about of how you've added value to the company. So there's one thing to track the work to make sure you execute it, but there's another thing to make sure you're tracking the work so that you can advocate for yourself on the back end for promotions, progression, opportunities, things like that. Okay. So that's a little bit about how I track the tasks that I have for work and then how I, on the backside, track them for accomplishments. The last piece of this is when you are doing your planning, when you are managing your work calendar, when you are scheduling your tasks, you need to be planning in self-advocacy. Self-advocacy and networking are the number 1 and 2 things that go when we get busy, right? All of a sudden we're super busy. We're like, oh, I don't have time to network. I don't have time to talk to so-and-so, or they're busy and I don't want to bother them. Networking and self-advocacy need to be part of your schedule. Okay. Maybe not every day, maybe even not every week, but who are the individuals you need to be meeting with one-on-one to strengthen your relationship with them so that they are willing to advocate for you come year end? Who are the individuals that you need to be sending a list of all the work you're doing, right? My boss and my boss's boss get an email from you once a month with, hey, this is everything the team delivered last month. Here's their accomplishments. Here's the great things that they worked on. Here's the value that it added to the firm. And that's because if you're running your space well, if you're autonomous and a great worker, your boss is no longer paying attention. And even if they are paying attention, they don't have time to be in the weeds of what you're doing, nor do you want them to, because then they're micromanaging you. But you need to be bubbling up to them. Hey, here's the work that we're accomplishing. Here's why it's important. Here's the value that it adds. You need to be planning that self-advocacy. Okay, that self-advocacy takes part in your one-on-ones. It takes part in your written emails or slides or QBRs or whatever you do to bubble up your accomplishments. And it takes place in networking. Right? Hey, I'm going to go meet with the people who I've worked with this year, talk to them, see what's going on, see if there's anything they need from me. How can my team help them for next year? Yada, yada. Okay. You need to plan in your self-advocacy. Okay. The same way that I plan batching my content, right? If you've never been an influencer, which I don't really consider myself to be one, but say I am, I batch all my content on Mondays. All right. I record all of my videos for the next week or 2 weeks out or whenever the time period is that I'm recording. I batch them all on Monday. Same with my podcast episodes. They get batched far in advance of when they actually go public, right? So right now in October, all of my episodes are recorded through January, right? So I will have all of these episodes coming out in future months, but they're already batched and ready to go, okay? And part of that is just for my mental health that I don't want to be going into every week like, oh my gosh, I have to record something or I'm not going to have anything to go live on Monday. It just stresses me out. So that's a big piece of running my social media is that I have to batch and have things ready to go. The same way that I'm batching my content, you need to be batching your self-advocacy. You need to be planning, hey, here's the emails I'm going to send out and when. Here's the one-on-ones I'm going to have and when. Here's how I'm going to plan ahead for this. I tend to have all of my one-on-ones with people like in the same month. So I do quarterly touch bases And in my quarterly touch bases are all in the same month. So maybe it's the first month of every quarter, which would be October. So then I meet with the head of operations, the head of the PMO, the head of each of the divisions in IT, whatever it is, so that I have those relationships and I'm ready to go rolling into the next couple of months. So when you are creating your ideal week, maybe an hour a week is set aside for networking. Maybe an hour a week is set aside for your one-on-ones with your boss for self-advocacy. Maybe you have time carved out to send your recap email of what you did that week, right? Figure out what cadence makes sense for you, but put it in the plan. Okay. When you read self-development books, there's so many good books out there. So many good books. I need to bring back the book club because I'm reading, but I just am not posting about it. So we should do it. And in fact, at the end of this episode, I'll give you like a list of books that I really like that I've been reading lately. Anywho, when you read a self-development book, the reason that most self-development books don't work is because we don't do anything. We read it and we're like, oh, that's a great idea. And then we don't do that thing. Or it says in the book, hey, get a piece of paper and write this down. And we're like, do that later, right? I fall victim to this as well. But if you are trying to manage your time, build good habits, deliver great work, take the time, create your ideal weekly schedule. Do it in Excel, do it on a piece of paper. I don't care. Pick a medium of choice. You could paint it in an abstract painting of your life. I don't care. But plan out your week. What should it look like? What is an ideal week? And there will be weeks that your week does not look like your ideal week. Okay? Trust me. There are weeks where I'm like, no content got done this week. It just didn't happen. I was traveling on Monday. Things got out of schedule. It totally will happen, right? This is not a rubric by which you have to live your life. Otherwise, you get penalized. This is a guide. This is inspiration. So you're going to have that weekly schedule. Then you're going to have your to-do list, your habits that you're going to repeat every day in some type of medium where you can see that, whether that's the A-Note app on your phone that you're just going to put them in there and you're going to repeat. Cool, right? I used that for years before I had my remarkable tablet. Maybe it's a tablet. Maybe it's a note in your phone. Maybe it's a text that you schedule to send yourself every Monday. I don't know. Pick a way to stick to your habits and do it. Track your work on top of that, right? Your work gets added to those lists on the day that it's due, and it gets added to your tracker so you're ready going to performance reviews. And then set aside time for advocacy and networking. If you do these things, if you listen to this episode and you're like, I'm ready, best week ever will be next week, I swear it will make such a difference. And a lot of the time, the hate that I hear when people talk about time management is they're like, oh, well, she doesn't have kids, or she's not married, or she doesn't go into an office, or she doesn't work a non-9 to 5 schedule. There's all these excuses you can come up with, okay? But I want you to keep in mind, and this is not to brag, this is just to level set with you. I have 2 young kids. I'm married. I run my own business and 6 social media platforms as part of that. I work a corporate 9 to 5 job. Now I do get to work remote, huge benefit, not gonna lie, but I work a full corporate job. I compete in pageants. I'm on the board of multiple nonprofits, and I work out 4 times a week, and I can make it work. All right, now I have a super high stress threshold, and I am by no means superwoman, and there are weeks that are better than other weeks, okay? But I promise you these habits truly help. I'm not coming up with excuses to you. I love all these fitness influencers I follow online who are like, oh my gosh, just like eat chicken every day and be skinny. And I'm like, that's so nice for you. I have like a bajillion other things on my plate, so that's not going to work. So find the way that this fits into your schedule. You know, when my kids were really young, like infants, there are nights they would sleep not very well. I am not waking up at 5 a.m. to go to the gym after my kid was up all night. It's not happening. So sometimes we shift a day or we skip that day entirely, and that's okay. Like I said, this is inspiration and this is guide. So the goal is that this would help you guys really take ownership and find some direction when it comes to being as successful as you can be within the parameters of what works in your life, right? And it's really important to carve out those hobbies so that your mind can decompress, right? Especially moms who are listening and dads who are listening to this episode. If you're a parent, it is so easy to be like, I work 9 to 5 and then I'm all about my kids from 5 to 10. It is so easy to fall into that trap. But if you have hobbies, right? You like to golf, you like to work out, you like to read, you like to knit, you like to scuba dive. I'm picking things, okay? When can you fit that into your week? Are there days you can take the kids to the gym and get your workout in? Are there days where maybe your spouse watches them so you can go golf? Are there shifts and schedules that we can make work that allow you to get your hobbies so that you can decompress, right? Don't burn yourself out trying to do everything. Find an ideal week that fits your life, and then 80% of the time stick to that. I truly find it to be so, so helpful. So hopefully you guys liked today's episode. This was helpful for you. I will put all of the links that I mentioned in the show notes. But if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below or to reach out to me on Instagram. Otherwise, I'm Kendall. I'm that career coach. I hope you enjoyed today's episode of Secrets of the Career Game. Go ahead and leave us 5 stars, and I look forward to chatting with you guys again next week.